Hey Lanyon Youth, welcome to this Thursday morning of the daily podcast, working our way through Philippians. Today I just have really one and a half verses for you, but they are jam-packed with goodness, so how about I read them? Paul is saying, "Yes, and I will continue to rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance." Remember, Paul is in jail. People are preaching Christ, some out of bad motives to stir up trouble for Paul. And he said, but what does it matter? Christ is preached. My suffering doesn't really matter if Christ is preached. And he continues to rejoice internally, even though his external circumstances are not all that great. How does he do this? Why does he rejoice? Well, he tells us. He says, I will continue to rejoice for, and then he goes on to explain, and he kind of gives us three things. The first reason he continues to rejoice is because, for I know that through your prayers, through the prayers of the Philippians, that's what's keeping him going. And I got to say, this is really encouraging. Prayer matters. It's not just some kind of spiritual thing we do on our own that doesn't really affect the world. No, prayer makes a difference. You know, if you've kind of in this hard time actually been encouraged and grown in your faith at times, there's lots of reasons for that. But can I tell you, one of them might be because me and the other youth leaders are praying for you. Prayer works, but it also works the other way. Sometimes I have been encouraged, I've been spurred on my faith, and you know why? Because I know people are praying for me. Prayer works, so do it. It will help others rejoice in Christ. But that's not the only thing. He says, for I know that through your prayers and, second thing, God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. God's provision of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Godhead. God himself in spirit. But Paul, as he often does, he calls it the Spirit of Jesus Christ. This kind of helps us think about what is the Holy Spirit? Who is the Holy Spirit? Sometimes we can think about it as the kind of like the Force from Star Wars, this kind of impersonal, vague thing in our lives. But the Spirit is the presence of Jesus Christ. It is Jesus with us through the Spirit, even though he is not physically present. The best way I can kind of think about this is the analogy of a long-distance relationship or friendship. We have a long-distance relationship with Jesus. So, we can't Zoom Jesus. We can't get on the phone in the same way. But the Spirit is our way of kind of being in touch with the presence of Jesus Christ long distance, even though he's not with us on earth, but at the right hand of the Father in heaven. The Spirit is kind of like if you had a long-distance relationship and your partner overseas sent a friend to give you some letters and to pass on some words of comfort. That's what the Spirit is. It's the Spirit. The Spirit is Jesus Christ's presence with us, even though Jesus is absent physically. I hope that makes sense. And of course, this is really encouraging for Paul, knowing that Jesus is with him in the Spirit through the Word is such a great comfort in trial. I hope it is for you too. Jesus is with you now in Spirit, in the Holy Spirit. There's a third final thing. He says, through the prayers, through the provision of the Spirit from God, he knows that what has happened to him will turn out for his deliverance. That's why he can rejoice. It will turn out for his deliverance. Other words you could use are vindication or salvation. In short, Paul will be shown to be in the right. He will be shown to be in the right at the end of all things, and his suffering now is just a blip on the radar. God will vindicate him. This is good news for us. Sometimes in our life, people can treat us unfairly. They can be mean to you. They can neglect you, not treat you like you deserve. And that's not a thing to just kind of put up with necessarily. But I can tell you this. God will vindicate you. He will not let your suffering go unnoticed, just as he would not let Paul's suffering in jail go unnoticed. Another way to think about this is there's probably many of us who do lots of good things that don't get noticed. Maybe at church, you do heaps and you don't feel like you get noticed. Or at home, you help around the house and still you feel you're not noticed. God will vindicate you. God sees it. He knows it. He will deliver you and vindicate you in the same way he did for Paul. In the same way, God vindicated Jesus, who died on a cross in his resurrection, saying, you know what? No, this man was in the right despite his suffering. He will do it for us too. And that means we can be like Paul. We can rejoice even when we're treated unfairly. We can say, but what does it matter? I have the prayers of God's people. I have the Spirit of Jesus Christ, and I know God will deliver, vindicate, and save me.